ladies and gents, this is World War I 1914 by the channel Epic History TV. We finished Napoleonic Wars of Epic History TV. So people suggested I should do the World War I of Epic History TV. So yeah, we're doing it. And I've seen a lot of videos of World War II. I've seen some videos of World War I. So I should know something about this, but there's going to be lots of element in this that I have no idea about it, so it's going to be fun watching this. So World War I, otherwise known as the Great War, because they thought there's not going to be another one. Clearly they were wrong. So the Great War, it started, first of all, it fought between two groups. One group was, I guess, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and I think Ottoman Empire. They were called Central Power, and other was basically everyone else: UK, USA, Russia, Italy, France. They were the Allied forces. So basically it started when Archduke of Austria, Archduke of Austria got shot, and that basically did the chain reaction that caused this. That bound to happen when you have two groups where every country is allied with one group. So any of that group's country get any hurt, two groups get at each other's throat, which what happened in World War I. So some people I've heard saying that if Archduke was never shot, the war would never have started. But I don't think that's true, because yes, Archduke getting shot, that started everything, but there was already instability there. There was already tension way high. So some other event could have caused this anyway. Because let's be honest, Europe has been at war with each other for past 8-9 centuries. At certain times they have been war at each other at such a large scale that a war ends and just a decade or two later they start another war. Again the war ends, another decade or two later another war starts. I mean, look at the World War. World War I ends, and I think a decade or two, maybe three later, World War II starts. I mean, to put that into perspective, anybody who's 25 and older would remember year 2000. I mean, they would be still small, but they would kind of remember the year 2000. And right now it's 2020. I mean, sure, if 2 decades kind of feel that long, but not that long. I mean, imagine if there was a major war that ended in 99 or something. And this 2020, another major war just starts now. You feel like it just ended yesterday and just started now. 2 decades is not that long. So there's lots of wars in Europe that one ended, another started immediately after a decade or two later. So, and also that brings me to another point. Since the World War II ended, there hasn't been any war in Europe for past 70-80 years. So Hitler was such an a-hole that everybody what, that's it, it's just too much. Let's make European Union and just do whatever we need to do, and let's not go to war again. They have been at peace for 80 years at the gigantic scale, at least. That has never happened in past 7-8 centuries. So that's just ridiculous. So yeah, World War I, let's watch that. And also, they didn't thought that when Napoleon was going on, the 7 Years' War and the World War I, all these things happened. Nobody was thinking that. But Hitler was such a bad example, not because his effect, because of his perception of him too. The way he looked, the way he talked, he looked entirely, radical and psychotic. So people okay, another one like this cannot rise. So they just created a union and they have been peace for 80 years now. So yeah, let's watch World War I.
(1914). The great powers of Europe are divided into two rival alliances: the Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia, united by fear and suspicion of Germany, Europe's new strongest power. And the Triple Alliance: Germany, which fears encirclement by its rivals; Austro-Hungary, clinging on to a fragile empire; and Italy, seeking gains at French expense.
Italy was with Germany and Austria? I didn't know that. I thought Italy was part of Allied forces.
The spark comes on the 28th of June in the city of Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is assassinated by a 19-year-old Slav nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Austro-Hungary accuses its Balkan rival Serbia of having aided the assassin and sends an ultimatum demanding humiliating concessions. Serbia rejects the ultimatum, and Austro-Hungary declares war. Within hours, Austrian forces are shelling Belgrade. The Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, feels honor-bound to defend Serbia, a fellow Slav nation, and orders the Russian army to mobilize. German Emperor Wilhelm II has promised his support to Austro-Hungary.
Nicholas. Was it in, oversimplified video or what? I saw what happened to him and his family under the Soviets. It's just horrible, man.
Hungary. He and his generals see conflict with Russia as inevitable, and the sooner the better, as Russian strength grows year on year. Russian mobilization is used to justify German mobilization, followed by a declaration of war on Russia. Germany knows war with Russia means war with Russia's ally, France. It has developed the Schlieffen Plan to meet this threat of a war on two fronts. First, its armies will advance rapidly through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy French armies near Paris and win a quick victory. Then its forces can move east to deal with Russia, whose huge army will take much longer to mobilize. And so Germany declares...
Belgium is in such a bad place, isn't it? Because even in World War II, Hitler wanted to invade some part of France and he routed through Belgium. It's like Belgium's like, do you any of you want to invade me, or I'm just in a way? Everybody just bypasses Belgium to go to France.
Declares war on France. 6 million men are now marching to war across Europe. Italy, however, remains neutral. The terms of the Triple Alliance don't bind it to join an offensive war. The United States also declares its neutrality. President Wilson and the American public have no desire to get entangled in Europe's war. Britain is France's ally, but at first it's not clear if it will join the war against Germany. But when German troops invade Belgium, whose neutrality Britain has guaranteed, an ultimatum is sent from London to Berlin, demanding they withdraw.
Yeah, it's not about just guaranteeing the freedom. It's just if you invade Belgium, it's just too close to Britain. So their security gets threatened. That's the biggest issue.
It's ignored, and Britain declares war. A British expeditionary force lands in France, while the German invasion is held up for crucial days by Belgian resistance at the fortress city of Liège. German troops commit several massacres against Belgian civilians. The atrocities are inflated by Allied propaganda and help turn public opinion in neutral countries against Germany.
Every
France.
war, World War I, World War II, every time that is countries are at war, wars happen in the civilian streets, and civilian always gets caught in the crossfire. Even though every soldier who fights in the war are kind of a civilian of their own country, they have relatives, those are civilians. But whenever they go to opposing countries, doesn't matter if their moral is good, they always do these atrocities, which I don't understand. There is always the case of whether it's US soldier or any other soldier, German soldier, Russian soldiers, it's just they always do some heinous atrocities. It's just like, come on, man. War is created by leaders of countries for some stupid reasons, fought by soldiers. Civilians just get in the middle, man. They're always collateral.
Unaware of Germany's great encircling attack, launches Plan 17, an offensive into German territory. But in the Battle of the Frontiers, they're driven back with enormous losses on both sides. The British Expeditionary Force clashes with the German army at Mons, but the British are heavily outnumbered and soon join the French in retreat. The Allies make their stand at the River Marne, 40 miles outside Paris. Their desperate counterattack saves the city and drives the Germans back. Both sides suffer 250,000 casualties. The race to the sea begins as both sides try to outflank each other to the north. A series of clashes leads to the First Battle of Ypres, where the Allies desperately cling on and prevent a German breakthrough. There are more heavy losses on both sides. The two armies then dig in along the entire 350-mile front, seeking shelter from deadly machine gun fire and artillery shells. Trench warfare has begun.
Trench warfare is horrible, man, because there's trench on both sides and there's a middle no man's land. That's just horrible, man. People, countries always gives orders for soldiers to just march forward, even though everybody knows who are gonna get marched forward is gonna get slaughtered one way or another. So it's just ridiculous. When you're a soldier at the trench, it's like order comes, all right, it's time to charge. I mean, it basically is, it's time to go ahead and die. I mean, how do you process that? No man's land is riddled with all the dead bodies and things. Always cannon fire happening, machine gun sounds. Ugh. There was a episode of the Blackadder, I think, of Rowan Atkinson's TV show, in which there was a scene where he's at the trenches. That scene was about World War II, I think, but still there was a scene about trenches and where they just march forward, and that's where the episode ends. It just hit harder, man. Even though there was a comedy show, that scene hit way harder to me.
British warships win the first naval battle of the war at Heligoland Bight, sinking 3 German cruisers. Britain has the most powerful navy in the world, 29 modern battleships to Germany's 19. They now impose a naval blockade on Germany, preventing contraband goods, including food, from reaching it by sea. The aim is to bring Germany's economy to its knees and force it to surrender.
British always had this great tactical advantage when it comes to things like this, because in any war there's always like Britain caused the blockade, because if you want to go to any side at the sea, you will have to go through Britain or surrounding areas. So they could just create blockades to block people, whether it's Russia, Germany, Sweden or whatever, Norway.
But a week later, the British cruiser HMS Pathfinder becomes the first victim in history of a lethal new weapon: the submarine-launched torpedo. German submarines, or U-boats, have a surface range of 9,000 miles and can attack undetected from beneath the waves.
Yeah, these submarines. I think submarines has been around for way longer than this time, but I think these were the first submarines that were more of a modern time submarines. Yeah, you could say that, because they were fast underwater, they had long ranges, they could fire torpedoes like that. This was basically the modern submarine, or the what we call a submarine nowadays. This was, I think, the first one of those. So German engineering, it proved dangerous in World War II, man. World War II, we know that lots of planes and tanks, German, they just had the edge. Even in World War I, they just introduced submarine like that.
They herald a deadly new challenge to Britain's command of the seas. On the Eastern Front, Russian armies invade East Prussia, but they blunder into disaster at the Battle of Tannenberg, where General von Hindenburg and his Chief of Staff, Erich Ludendorff, mastermind a brilliant German victory, taking 90,000 prisoners and destroying an entire Russian army. The Russians contribute to their own defeat by transmitting uncoded wireless messages. A second massive German victory at Masurian Lakes forces the Russians into retreat. In just 6 weeks, the Russian army suffers nearly 1/3 casualties. Meanwhile, Austro-Hungary's invasion of Serbia suffers a humiliating reverse at the Battle of Tser. Austro-Hungary's offensive against Russia also ends in disaster and retreat, with the loss of more than 300,000 men. The fortress town of Przemysl is cut off and besieged by the Russians. The Germans are forced to come to the rescue, launching a diversionary attack towards Warsaw.
Germans
It
in
leads to
Warsaw.
weeks of brutal winter fighting around the Polish city of Łódź, but there is no clear winner. Meanwhile, the Turkish Ottoman Empire has joined the Central Powers, declaring war on its old enemy, Russia. Turkish warships bombard the Russian ports of Odessa and Sevastopol, while in the Caucasus, Russian troops cross the Turkish frontier.
Damn, is there any country that Russia doesn't border? It's ridiculous when you think about it. I think real life lore should make, I think he made the video, I don't know, but he should make a video about how many countries Russia borders. It's just ridiculous. It also borders Turkey or Ottoman Empire or whatever, that too.
Beyond Europe, the war rages on the world's oceans and in far-flung European colonies. German troops cross into British East Africa, modern Kenya, and occupy Taveta, while Allied forces seize the German colony of Togoland, modern Togo. But British
Africans be like, what the hell do you want from us, man? Fight at the Europe. Why are you here?
forces invading German Cameroon are defeated at Garoua and Nsangakong, while a 3,000-strong force attacking German Southwest Africa, modern Namibia, is captured at Sandfontein. A month later, British landings at Tanga end in chaos and defeat at the hands of a much smaller German force led by Colonel von Lettow-Vorbeck. Cut off from Germany, Lettow-Vorbeck goes on to wage a highly successful guerrilla war against the Allies, tying down huge numbers of troops. In Asia, Japan honors its treaty with Britain and declares war on Germany. Japanese forces go on to seize the German naval base at Tsingtao. The German colonies of Samoa and New Guinea surrender to troops from New Zealand and Australia. But in the Pacific, off the coast of Chile, German Admiral von Spee's powerful East Asia squadron sinks 2 British cruisers at the Battle of Coronel. Both ships are lost with all hands. 5 weeks later, he runs into a British naval task force at the Falkland Islands. 4 of the 5 German
Battle in South America. I'm surprised US didn't go, whoa, that's too close, man. Back off.
cruisers are sunk. Von Spee goes down with his flagship. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, British troops seize control of the Ottoman port of Basra, securing access to the vital Persian oil that fuels the British fleet. That winter, Austrian troops finally capture Belgrade. But the Serbs then counterattack and drive them back once more. The fighting in Serbia has already cost around 200,000 casualties on each side. In the North Sea, German warships mount a hit-and-run raid against English coastal towns, shelling Hartlepool, Whitby and Scarborough, and killing more than 100 civilians.
God damn it, Britain always goes through this kind of thing, isn't it? Whether it's World War II or World War I, cities always get bombed. Are British cities too close to the coastline or something, man? They usually, in World War II, the bombers came and bombed the London and everywhere. In here, they are doing that from the sea. Civilians just like walking around and just bombardment starts. That's just ridiculous, man.
On the Western Front, the French launched their first major offensive against the German lines. But the First Battle of Champagne leads to small gains at a cost of 90,000 casualties. While in the Caucasus, an Ottoman offensive through the mountains in midwinter ends in disaster at Sarikamish. Turkish casualties total 60,000, many frozen to death. On the Western Front, that first Christmas is marked in some sectors by a short truce and games of football in no man's land, the killing zone between the trenches.
Yeah, playing football at the no man's land, that would be a sight, wouldn't it? I'm surprised India's not involved. I have no idea if India's going to involve or not, because it was ruled by Britain, I think. I'm surprised Britain didn't go to India and just, conscript a tons of people just to get on them on the land to go to war. That was the first video. The second video was about 1915. So this covered entire 1914 right there. Damn, this is something, isn't it? Look at the casualties, man. It's like 90,000, 200,000. Damn, compared to Napoleonic Wars, the casualties went way up. I mean, did the population increase that much, or just wars are fought with that many people now? It must be the war just got bigger. That's just it. I don't think population grew at that level, because I remember hearing somewhere that World War I, World War II, Russia lost so many people that ratio of men and women was so unbalanced. There were lots of women compared to men in Russia. Even right now there is like that. That's because of war. It's ridiculous when your actual population, actual male population went down because of a war that happened a few decades ago. That's just long-lasting effect. That's a scarring effect. Thank God something happened after World War II that caused all the peace, European Union or whatever. Otherwise, Europe has been at each other's throat for a long, long time. But 80-year peace, I think that chain is broken now. Alright, we'll watch the World War I 1915 video next time. If you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And check out my new gaming channel, which is right here.